You're listening to Rookie Pirate Radio, the official anime and manga podcast for InBetweenDrafts.com. I'm John Negroni.
And I'm Travis Hymas.
And today we're doing a manga recap of One Piece chapter 1131, titled Loki in the Underworld. And Travis, I think I'm the one in the Underworld anytime I have to go a week without talking One Piece with you.
I know, it's like we're lost in the wilderness and it's cold and snowing outside. Definitely not related to this chapter at all.
Wolves everywhere. And as usual, we're going to be discussing spoilers for the One Piece manga up until this point. So if you have not yet read chapter 1131, be sure to do so now for free on the Viz website, or you can check it out on the Shonen Jump app, linked in the show notes as always. And remember, all new One Piece chapters are available to read for free up to 3 weeks after their official release. But if you subscribe to Shonen Jump, you can read all of them all the time. And we recommend you do that if you're as big of a One Piece fan as us. All right, Travis, we have so much to get to. Real quick, I do want to tell people about the number one gift this holiday season. The number one thing. It's our Discord. Can you imagine open it Christmas morning or Hanukkah, all the children gathered around the tree, and then there's one in the corner. They are not part of the Discord yet. They open up their gift, and it's a QR code to join the In Between Drafts Discord server. I can't think of a better gift, actually.
You know, and it's perfect because it costs you nothing. I know everybody's really anxious about what the future's going to bring. Well, now you don't have to worry about blowing all of your savings on a Christmas gift or other holiday denominations. We don't judge. You're welcome to join the Discord regardless of what winter celebration you're giving a gift for. And, you know, you're going to have a great time yourself because you can also join the Discord.
That's right. And you know what? You're probably thinking, John, Travis, that's nice, but I have a long list of people I need to get gifts for. Just one gift? It's like, excuse me, no. The Discord has multiple channels. It's like having 20 gifts in one, because you have the One Piece spoilers channel, you have the general One Piece chat, you have film, movies, books, games, even a whole channel about fantasy writing. I mean, it never ends.
Oh, whole channel about fantasy writing. I wonder if there's like a podcast associated with that too.
They can find out. And you know what? If you're a little bit like, okay, that's nice, but what about a stocking stuffer? Don't worry, because we also have an email. That's right. RookiePirateRadio@gmail.com. Travis, you got to say it too. Let's do it.
RookiePirateRadio@gmail.com.
Hit us up. And Travis, we had a 2-week break. Look at that. And, you know, we've had a lot of stuff coming through the pipeline in terms of like One Piece news. The live action is cooking up its new season. We have the remake. We have the anime going back to Fishman Island. It's a good time to be a One Piece fan, which I guess is all the time these days.
It is, but let's face it. For us, we just want the good old-fashioned, the content, the meat and potatoes. So I'm glad that we're back.
That's right. And so let's get into it. Let's not delay it any longer. So, okay, chapter 1131. First up, we have another cover story installment, Ogre Child Yamato's Golden Harvest Surrogate Pilgrimage, Volume 18, titled After That Sword Thief, in which we see Yamato and Otama riding Komachiyo and Speed in pursuit of the mysterious unknown thief who stole the sword that Yamato was supposed to deliver to the daimyo. But onto the chapter itself, we see that Luffy is ecstatic to have finally made it to Elbaf, and Loki announces himself as the sun god. He's enshrined in the legends of this land, or whatever. And he chastises Luffy for not listening to him and speaking without his permission. He even shouts out into the forest, and we see a bunch of wolves and all that stuff. We also learn here that Loki has a bounty from the government, the world government. His bounty is 2.6 billion berries. Loki then tells Luffy that he's been chained up for 6 years and that he considers himself to be the strongest in all of Elbaf. You'll note, by the way, that what happened 6 years ago? What else do we know that happened 6 years ago? That's right, Shanks became a Yonko. Let's put the pieces together. Anyway, Loki also tells Luffy that he's chained to what's called the Jewel Tree Atom. So it's confirmed. We knew it was Atom, but now we know no. This is what the Sunny is made of. Or the wood from the jewel tree, the world tree. And this tree, as we saw, of course, in that double spread, it forms the kingdom of Elbaf itself. Plus, the chains are, in fact, made of sea prism stone. So, Travis, I'm very sorry, but you got that one wrong.
Yeah, we got that one wrong.
It happens.
Though we have the suggestion now that we know how that happened.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that, huh? So Loki also calls Luffy Roddy, which is an eyebrow-raising similarity, by the way, to how Luffy often gets other people's names wrong. So we kind of have like some symmetry here. It's like Luffy, Loki, their names are kind of similar, and they kind of have similar personality traits in certain ways. It's interesting. But also, Loki offers Luffy a deal. If Luffy agrees to set him free, Loki promises to completely eliminate one rival pirate crew of his choosing. All Luffy has to do is find a key somewhere in a village. And Travis, I'll bet anything that you know who's probably in that village right now looking for a key. It's probably Eustace Kid. And he's probably like, I gotta find this key because Shanks is going down as soon as I free this guy.
Ooh, okay.
We'll see.
Okay.
Loki also tells Luffy that they are in the lowest plane of Elbaf, aka the Underworld. So if you recall, Luffy jumped off the bridge to get to this place. And it's described as where criminals, including so giants and humans, are imprisoned, and then the wild beasts of this underworld end up executing people who are here. And there's a place under the snow, according to their mythology, that's called the First World, and the sun will never reach it, and a bunch of blah 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 lore. And Loki also claims to have been friends with these fearsome beasts that we see since his childhood, and he threatens to sick them on Luffy. They, of course, remind not just us, but Luffy himself of the beasts that he trained with during the 2 years for the time skip. Loki also points out that there are some humans lurking about wearing smelly robes to repel the beasts, and we see them. They're wearing gas masks, and they bring up Shanks right as Luffy immediately tames all the wild beasts pretty much instantly. It shocks everybody, including Loki. And then Luffy asks if Shanks really came to this place, if he came to Elbaf, and Loki smirks and calls Shanks a coward of a pirate. Big mistake, because without missing a beat, Luffy goes gear forth and immediately attacks Loki, who just barely dodges him. He tells Luffy to take it easy, he was just joking. So Luffy reluctantly backs down, but he's still pissed off. And Loki defends himself, and he's like, oh yeah, what's the big idea? But secretly he's thinking, as soon as I get free, I'm going to kill this guy. So Luffy wants to know why Shanks is here, but Loki refuses to answer his questions for free. And that's when we cut to Nami, Usopp, Zoro, and Sanji and Chopper spotting Rodo being pursued by Goldberg and Gerd. Those were the two members of the new giant pirates we met chapter 2 ago. And they also have the Thousand Sunny with them. It looks like I think Goldberg is the one who's holding it. So the Straw Hats dash down the bridge as well in an attempt to reach the village nearby before they also get caught. Next up, we cut to another part of the Underworld, where we see Hajrudin, captain of the new giant pirates, and we also see his shipwright, Stanson. And they're celebrating after taking down a moose they want to feed to the Straw Hats. So they know the Straw Hats are coming. We have to assume that they just know that the other giant pirates went to go pick them up. And Stanson, you may recall, was the giant that the Straw Hats and Rayleigh actually freed all the way back during Sabaody Archipelago. I think this is the first time we've seen him since then. We get a quick refresher of how Hajrudin came to co-found the Straw Hat Grand Fleet and become one of its 7 captains. And we also get confirmation that the entire crew of the new giant pirates is made up of just 5 members. Goldberg the cook, Gerd the doctor, Stanson the shipwright, and Rodo the navigator. Finally, we cut to the coast of Elbaf, where the giant pirates with the other Straw Hats in tow are approaching the island. Brooke has just given Robin a haircut, so she now has bangs again and looks like her pre-time skip self, as an attempt to be more recognizable for when she hopefully reunites with Jaguar D. Saul. But right before the chapter ends, we cut to another part of Elbaf, where someone beckons that Dr. Saul has fallen and he can't get up, and so we'll have to call this character Life Alert, I suppose. End of chapter. We're supposedly getting a new chapter next week, but there are rumors it might be delayed. And also, we have an author comment from Oda. He writes, I went to South Africa. I return home with gratefulness and the motivation to keep working. I'll do better at everything. I love Oda. He's just so nice. I love his kid enthusiasm. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just one of the legendary mangaka of history, and I just had a fun trip.
I'm glad that it's I had a fun trip and not I had a medical procedure because this job is working me to death. I'll take it.
I kind of got the assumption, too, that South Africa is where they may be doing some filming for the live action. He might be helping out.
That's exactly where it is. That's what he was doing, was going on set. So
there you go.
He didn't get to last time, so I'm glad that he got it this time.
Travis, quite a chapter. Lots happened here. Lots of revelations, big and small. Where do you want to start?
We should just probably start with Loki himself. You've already floated one idea that I like, which is that someone else is going to let him out, but This is the most that we've seen of him yet.
Yes, yes. We got the, of course, the big cover, or sorry, the huge double spread, seeing his design, and I like the design from the get-go, and it's still just growing on me. He even kind of looks like he has like blonde hair, like Thor almost. And we'll see, of course. It's probably going to be
he's got a
some
big
random
hammer
color.
too.
He's got the hammer, and I know Tekking made a joke where he was like, "Oh, what if the hammer is called Thor instead of Mjolnir?" And but also he brought up something that I forgot, which is that Luffy has a technique that has Thor in the name that he uses in Dressrosa. So Thor is something, like Norse mythology in general is something that permeates the One Piece world. Call it a random coincidence if you want, but I think there's something to that.
Yeah, it's possible. It's very possible. I mean, the Elbaf is kind of supposed to be this legendary place. It would make sense that its legends have filtered out into everything else. If this is really where like Nika originates, and
Yes,
I have some thoughts about that.
the most powerful land. I'm sure there were like stories, bedtime stories that Luffy heard growing up. Yeah.
They become they kind of proliferate into the collective consciousness as stories, which we've kind of picked up on as being like how all of this has managed to persist past the Void Century in the first place. Is a lot of it seems to be through myth and legend and things that aren't necessarily written down, things you can't necessarily destroy. So this would all line up with that. I do have
Kuma's book. Don't forget Kuma's book.
Yeah, and Kuma's book, which is apparently just the Bible. I'm never letting that go. I do want to talk about Loki declaring himself to be the sun god again, because something that I was coming to while thinking about this is a friend pointed this out to me. He keeps saying sun god specifically. Dory and Brogy also say sun god specifically. However, Kuma doesn't do that. He specifically refers to Nika as Nika, the sun god. He uses the name, the giants don't. I find this curious, and I would like to float the idea that Elbaf itself has a myth, and that is that their version of Nika as they perceive him is different than Kuma's version.
Well, I mean, we know that they recognize Luffy's Nika form, right? So that aspect of it's consistent,
right?
But we don't necessarily know that that's how Kuma views Nika. So there's something to that.
We could probably through Vegapunk's confirmation kind of say yes, but I mean that like how Luffy kind of appears as different things to different people. Notably, we're back on Fisherman Island in the anime. He says back then, are we friends? Are we foes? What are, you decide for yourself. It feels like maybe the Nika legend isn't one legend, but multiple legends based on on their various actions throughout the world, and that's proliferated into different religious contexts, i.e., why were the Skypians sacrificing people to the sun god? That doesn't seem very Nika-like, right? But if it was a misinterpretation of something, that's a little bit more tantalizing.
Yeah, that could be Oda's commentary on different religions in our real life and how they all kind of view God a little bit differently. But sometimes there are similarities between things. Like a lot of world religions have like overlapping myths that kind of go together in weird ways. And a lot of them, sometimes very coincidentally. And in terms of like the Nika stuff, I've always liked that thing. I know we talked about it where Nika was essentially like like a mythological superhero, something like out of the Greek myths that Joy Boy sort of fashioned himself after, like a superhero almost. And so that there's a distinction between the Joy Boy kind of Nika and the Nika that he bases himself off of. It's almost like when you have like the original, the Scarlet Pimpernel, but then you also have Zorro, but then you also have Batman. Right? It's just like the same story kind of being retold with some, special tweaks depending on the culture and the time period.
Yeah. And again, it loops kind of all the way back around to the idea of One Piece itself being a story that inspires people. That good old meta stuff that nerds like me eat up.
Yes, the One Piece was just a book this whole time. It was the story we told along the way. Loki has a bounty, 2.6 billion, very low. Kid has a bigger bounty than this. However, this was probably given, 6 years ago. So I guess that means he's probably stronger because he's been, training his hockey or whatever while in these like sea prism stone things. But also he probably, we can guess that an inflation thing maybe kicks in here too, because inflation is still a thing. And I know I mentioned before, 6 years ago, that's when Shanks became a Yonko, we know. But then also, the timing of this still tracks with that theory that I put out, that he considers himself the sun god because he ate the fruit that he thinks was the Nika fruit, but I think was swapped out well before all of this when Luffy ate it about 10 or so years ago. So that tracks with my theories. My theory has not been disproven quite yet by Oda,
No.
in that somehow this fruit kind of got into Shanks's hands at some point, and then eventually like Loki ate it, and then Shanks had to go back to, maybe Shanks had to go back to Elbaf after he leaves Luffy and becomes a Yonko by helping take down Loki.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of validity to that. I again like the idea of kind of like these warring ideologies. We've already established that there are other fruits that kind of work like how Luffy's works, at least the fundamental baseline in Katakuri. So we could do something a little bit differently where this is a like legendary fruit, or it emulates the Nika fruit, but it's not the right thing. I still feel like that's kind of where this clash is supposed to be kind of like coming to a head, is ideological rather than like a specific conflict. But I'm still like 50-50 on whether or not Luffy's the one that lets him out.
I mean, I like how casually he's treating Loki. I mean, he's recognized in the last chapter that Loki's pretty powerful, but we see him just kind of like chilling on the dude's kneecap, like lounging and not taking him that seriously, and picking a fight with him too.
I mean, Luffy knows the score at all times, right? Like he can tell when something's serious and when something's not, and like he's kind of doing his own power scaling right now, which is that like this guy is chained to a giant tree. Like he is powerful, but he is not a threat to me. And I can take him is kind of like his own internal power scaling he's done.
Yeah, and I like how Oda is kind of, maybe, I don't want to say retroactively or retconning, but kind of giving us some good indication why the world government has basically left this island alone, because this island is a mess. I mean, it's chaotic, it's unwieldy. I can see why they're just like, yeah, it's high risk, low reward if we even tried to enact some kind of order over this place. Even though based on what we've been shown, it doesn't seem like there are that many heavy hitters around, like folks who are really like Yonko commander level, let alone Yonko level. So I know Shanks, of course, too, has been protecting this island for some time as well. So you could maybe argue that maybe Loki's father was that kind of person who was extremely powerful, like Yonko level even, or close to it. And that was a big reason why, maybe there was a war. Hey, maybe there was an emperor before Shanks who, died at some point. Maybe Loki's father was an emperor. Yeah, who knows what, we'll find out.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because we see, we think of the emperors as just like an assignment from the government, but at the same time, there's a lot of criteria you have to kind of meet, that Luffy has kind of inadvertently stumbled into. It makes you kind of wonder if that's what Shanks did as well. He just was going around being a cool guy and kind of stumbled into this position of power that he could kind of serve as its balance, or if that was his plan the whole time.
That's right. Okay, so Travis, I guess we could talk. I don't have too much to say about like the road stuff and the Straw Hats running away from him. That just seems like, okay, we're moving forward a bit. I guess, we know the new giant pirates now are made up of 5 members. That seems to make sense to me.
Yeah,
I'm glad that it's not a ton that we have to keep track of.
Yeah, we knew that from the cover story, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, that was a while ago, so I couldn't remember if that like went through them person by person. So, because that was during Whole Cake, right? When we got all that?
Yeah, it was. It was just, we were seeing all the various members of the Grand Fleet. So we did establish like Stanson and everything. I don't know that we had it like 100% confirmed, like this is the full crew. But it does make sense that they can run a little bit lean, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think this whole segment is just like setting up a misunderstanding kind of situation, though, where, they get to the village or they catch up with Harujin and he's like, what are you idiots doing? These are the Straw Hats and everything's fine. And then they tell him that Luffy wandered off somewhere and they go, oh, crap. That kind of feels like where we're going.
Exactly. Fun to see Stanson again, kind of back in action. That's cool to see that. They had this conversation about like painters and sunstones. I had no idea what was going on there. I haven't looked it up or anything. I'm sure somebody has shed some light on it. But yeah, I know there was some debate around the translation here. The actual Japanese for it made no sense to me. So I was not able to translate. I just kind of took the the basic context and figured it out from there. But I don't know. If it's important, it'll probably be explained later, I have to assume. I did want to bring up this thing about how Robin had Brooke cut her hair because there is an SBS where Oda has addressed this directly. So somebody asked him, like, who cuts the Straw Hat's hair? And apparently Sanji and Usopp have cut people's hair in the past, but they're not around. And also Robin has cut people's hair as well. But rather than cut her own hair, I guess Tekking brought this up. He was like, oh, why didn't Robin just use her power or use her extra hands? I feel like cutting your own hair no matter what is tough, but it makes sense that Brooke does it because he's got the afro. I feel like Frankie, I wouldn't trust Frankie to cut my hair because I'd probably end up with like a ridiculous like American hair. It's like one of his weird, like a cannon basically for a hairdo.
The other thing that I will raise is hands. Brooke kind of has the most normal sized hands at this point.
Yeah, Jinbei's a little bit too big, and he's got his hands probably can't quite,
They're webbed, it's kind of a little bit hard to navigate scissors. I like the idea of bringing back the old Robin look, though, because that's
the skin tone too, though.
Yeah, I was about to say like that's like the Robin time skip change and the subsequent correct color correction in the anime has long been controversial for a lot of people who I personally don't have as much of an issue with it because I think Oda's just really good at doing drip for characters, and I think Nico Robin's got some of the best looks in the series even after the time skip, but it is kind of fun for him to throw that bone back to everybody and like take that kind of negative criticism and turn it into like, well, okay, well, let's just, let's slide it back in here and give it back to them. Why not? That's always nice to see.
Hey, look, I mean, I'm refamiliarizing myself with Lyra Abova, who's going to be playing Nico Robin, and she kind of has like a Middle Eastern kind of.
That's the other thing that I'm kind of wondering is he doing that because of the show? Because it's probably coming out next year, right? Like they've basically all but locked it in. They just basically need Oda to confirm it.
That's the hope.
So it kind of would make sense that the whole time the show is doing marketing and it's on Netflix and everybody's watching it, Nico Robin looks like that while we're in Elbath. It kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of fun.
I did want to bring up too, we have a Bonnie sighting. Bonnie is still around, not just hanging out with Kuma. It's interesting because, Bonnie's hanging out and they're all having fun together. They look so, friendly, like they're all friends. Nakama, you could even say like crewmates, Travis.
Oh yeah. She's talking to Robin just like a friend, right? Like, oh, you're so pretty, Robin. And it's very, very, apparent that the events of Egghead have kind of connected her to them in a way that's different than
She's
like
softened.
Law. She doesn't have to put up a front anymore, right? They know the truth. She's found her dad. She doesn't have to pretend to be Jewelry Bonnie, the pirate captain anymore. She can just be Jewelry Bonnie, the kid, at least in the context of being around like her father again and the remaining Vegapunk and now the Straw Hats. So, to your point, this is effectively the found family conversation, right? The only thing is that now that we're like deep in the Elbaf arc, it's kind of like, what are we going, like, are we just kind of waiting to get Saul in the room with this as well to kind of like resolve all of these lingering threads about O'Hara and Vegapunk's message and everything? Because that kind of feels like what we need to resolve is those lingering threads that kind of all culminate around Kuma. I mean, is he just okay now? Is he just like laying there? Like we haven't really addressed any of that yet. So I feel like we need to clear that hurdle before we decide what we are doing with Bonnie. And I almost wonder if that's what Oda is doing right now in terms of like deciding what he wants to do with her going forward.
Yeah, I mean, look, all I'll say, Travis, is that, well, two things actually. One, Jewelry Bonnie, the jewel tree, what's going to happen? That's too many similar words. But also, more seriously, the other thing too is like, what if Oda pulls a what and is just like, hey, you know what, Bonnie, you join the crew, and Vegapunk, get in here. You're here too, Lilith. You're one of the gang. Now we have 4 women on the crew. It's a little bit more balanced than it was before, but I'm sure there's a whole agenda for Lilith. I know
we talk about this all the time. right? Is there 10 people on the crew? Is there 11 people on the crew? Is Oda just throwing this out now because he's made so many cool characters? Does it even matter in the context of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet? Some of this, yes, some of this, no. It really just feels like it could be anything. Like, it genuinely felt to us at the time that, like, oh yeah, Yamato is going to join the crew. Like, we went through basically more or less everything that you would expect for a crew joining, even though it was a little bit rushed, to the point where, like, did Oda change his mind? Was it just kind of a fake out? Like, what's the play here? And we're still kind of thinking, oh, well, we may have to actually go back to Wano because of Blackbeard, but even that seems like we've never really backtracked like that before. So it's still kind of nebulous that we would have time to even do that. So what is the play here? Why even tease out other Straw Hat members if you're not going to have them join? Like, have you written yourself into a corner? Probably not. I mean, you can say, that thing that I wrote in like chapter 1, I wasn't really sure about, 25 years ago. I think everybody's going to be okay with that. But what does that look like? What do more crew members joining in the final saga even look like? Do we get to spend that time? Bonnie is pretty much the only character right now, with the exception of Vivi, which we all kind of like consider a member of the crew anyway. How many other characters really get to fit this bill? How many more can fit this bill?
That's
really
right.
debatable.
Yeah, Vivi, Yamato, is it Carrot?
I would say.
Don't forget Carrot.
I mean, I would say even like Carrot or Yamato don't really, we haven't spent the kind of time we would need to really make it feel as fulfilling. Because that's kind of the fun part about the Straw Hats is you have this idea that you've been on this journey with them for a long time at this point. We only had one crew member join post time skip, and that's Jinbei. And getting Jinbei to join took 15 years, like it was a journey just to get him there. And people were still disappointed that there wasn't like a very special like cup ceremony or anything, which is weird because we, frankly speaking, we haven't done that with everybody else. We just have banquets, and he was there for a banquet. So yes.
I like how you said that too. Frankly speaking.
Yeah, frankly speaking.
Well done.
It's just, I like at this point I wouldn't even be like, okay, now Yamato could join the crew because we've like the ship has sailed now. That opportunity has passed. It was a nice idea to like mirror the story at the time, but we've moved on now. And like, what is Lilith supposed to offer to the crew specifically? Yeah, it's very smart and everything, but I mean, we have Nico Robin. Like, I guess, are they going to explain the Void Sentry? No, that's Nico Robin's job. Are we going to do weather science? That's Nami's job. What is Lilith? I definitely don't see staying on the ship for a long period of time. But again, given where we are and what the context is, and the kind of debatability on whether or not Oda even intended for Elbaf to be an arc, the reality of the situation is that maybe it doesn't matter because we're just going to go headlong into a bunch of wars and there's just going to be a bunch of characters around.
I did want to bring up, try to push us off this, but Saul apparently is hurt by something.
Don't you do this to me.
I know. The timing of it is suspicious. And it's also like, okay, what could have happened? And also, he's apparently a doctor now. Some people translate it as Mr. Saul, but that's not really what the Japanese says. So the official translation puts it as doctor.
Yeah, it's the same way as Vegapunk as a doctor. It's more of an honorific of like a professor than
that's what I was curious about. Like, okay, you beat me to it because I was like, is he kind of like some kind of like scholar because of like the books and all of that? And so that's what I'm hoping it is. And okay.
He is basically the final scholar of Ohara, right? Mm-hmm. Especially now that Vegapunk is finger quotes dead.
Sweet, we agree. So
it makes sense.
All right. No idea what's happening here with him collapsing. It could be a host of different things. I guess the point is that Oda just wanted to tease us with something and, add some tension to the reunion.
I swear to God, if he breaks this woman's heart one more time. Could you imagine?
Spoken like a true One Piece
fan. I'm wondering, though, if it's really what Kuzan did just left him with some sort of physical disability. It could be something like that.
Snicker Snack wrote, if Kid is there, he's most likely in the Underworld too and can ally with Loki. See, that's what I'm saying. Because we know Kid is around. We don't know what's going on with him. We're going to go to this village. My thinking is that maybe this village is going to have Saul. Maybe Kid is going to be around to looking for the key. I don't know. But there has to be some kind of at least reference to what happened with him, unless I guess they escaped Elbaf entirely, which I guess isn't out of the question. But then what's your end game there? It would be kind of a bummer if we didn't get any resolution of that.
See, you say that, but I think if we're not doing his backstory, which we're not, we got that in an SBS, that's fine. Him kind of being one of the losers on the Grand Line because he got too violent is kind of fair. Yeah. I think that's a fitting ending.
Ignitia writes, that ending is definitely a misdirect that Oda likes to use in the beginning of arcs to create misunderstandings or side quests for the Straw Hats to take. The better question here is Dr. Saul actually sick or is it something else? Yeah, I mean, this could be like with Zoe, right? When we found out that, there was like the tease of like Nami crying because something happened to Sanji, and it ended up being that like Sanji was taken away somewhere. It could be something like that where we think like, oh no, is Sanji like really hurt? And it's like, no, but we do have this other thing to deal with now. Like, yeah, misdirect could be the case.
Yeah, again, it could be something silly. It could be a joke. It could be an after effect of being frozen. Or it's Oda really wanting to play with our heartstrings right out of the gate. Again, it's hard to say because we don't really know where this is going. It's kind of been a weird start to the arc.
MRN 1220 writes, part of me thinks Luffy is going to release Loki just so they can fight. Loki might realize he can manipulate Luffy and claim it's cowardly to fight an imprisoned man. I've read enough to know Luffy would go for that. I don't buy that at all. I feel like this isn't Goku. Luffy is not Goku. He's not like, he doesn't fight for the heck of it. He wants adventure. And so the way that Loki would convince him to do anything would be sort of like, I'll give people food, or I'll, tell you how to get to the top of a tree. Those are more of the things that motivate Luffy. He doesn't go around just being like, I'll take anybody on, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, Luffy's most poignant moments are when he's not doing a whole fight, punching Charlos or punching Bellamy. The moments where he doesn't use his powers, like he does not even so much as show a threatening energy towards Loki until he says like one of the few things that's going to immediately set him off. And then even then he's able to come off of the heat. So I don't think he's really out here looking for like a fight, at least in that context, at like a giant, festival or some sort of like, banquet and everybody's doing it for fun. I could see him doing that, but not in this kind of context. No, Loki's going to have to trick him to get him to unlock him.
Yeah, because like if somebody said, if Loki had said something messed up about Luffy wouldn't care. He would be like Shanks in the bar. He'd be like, whatever. But if it's somebody he cares about, like one of his friends, that's when he springs into action. Parallax 3 writes, Loki is a very interesting character. I wonder what sorts of mythical devil fruit power he has and what will happen once he's freed somehow, if not by Luffy himself. He does look like the sort of character that would be an unleashed calamity on the world should he be freed. See, my thing with this is that, I don't know, if he's so powerful, there's this idea that all the giants had to work together to stop him. Why isn't his bounty any higher? Is that just because the world government doesn't see him as a threat? Or did he get his bounty for something else and, it would have kept rising, maybe? Or maybe he became much more powerful. Like maybe that was his bounty before he ate that devil fruit. And then now he's even more powerful. Like that would make more sense to me. So I don't know. I'm like, I'm questioning how strong is this guy really?
Given that the government doesn't want, they want to get involved with Elbaf, but they can't get the military might over Elbaf's own military might. I imagine that this bounty is something he did off island because we know he has been off the island. So it's very likely that he's been out doing some shenanigans, as Lokis are known to do, and he went and got himself that bounty and then went and got himself chained to a tree, and that's more or less the last that the world government's even heard of him.
Yeah. I mean, there was the whole thing where he was supposed to marry, I think, was it Lola or Chiffon? I forget which one.
Yeah, it was Lola.
And I forget how long ago that was supposed to be.
That was Thriller Bark, at least.
So then what happened there 6 years ago?
I mean, it was before Thriller Bark because Lola's on Thriller Bark.
Right. Okay. So I guess it was just like, so at least 4 years before that. I guess that I don't know. I'd have to look at the timeline again.
We
I guess
we
that
have
makes
a
sense.
few we have a few timeline inconsistencies here right now that are going to need to be probably SBS'd out because
Hmm.
again, it's kind of up in the air whether or not they were originally going to go to Elbaf. I'm glad they chose to do so because I would have been very bummed out if we skipped it. But
Primal X3 also wrote, as for the new giant pirates, the fact that Roto is up and about after taking Nami's strongest attack when he's most likely the weakest of the new giant pirates shows the remarkable resilience of giants, probably halfway or more to the level of the likes of Big Mom and Kaido. No, no, not even halfway. Loki himself isn't bluffing if he's several times stronger than even high-level warrior giants. Yeah, no, I would say that these folks, again, Hajrudin was like is the strongest of them, and he got nerfed by Luffy and Dressrosa very easily. I'd say that I don't know. If that was, yeah, he shook off that attack, but that's One Piece logic, right? Like, I don't know. If
do,
it,
do people think that the Straw Hats have been crossing this bridge for like 5 minutes? Like, remember, it's giant scaled. They've probably been at this for a while now.
yeah, maybe like an hour.
Yeah, probably, honestly. Like, they've been at it. So, we've had enough time for Gerd, and I've already forgotten his name, to
Goldberg
to get across the bridge, find Roto, probably wake him up, note, get the story from him, find the Thousand Sunny, grab it, chase him out of there, and they're still on the bridge.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
of course.
I would say Hajrudin is probably not even Toby Roppo level. Like, that's kind of where I'm at with him. Like, he could maybe hold his own against like Sakasuki, maybe, but like I don't think he could take on like Who's Who, for example. Or if he did, he would lose. Like, he could maybe skirmish, but not get much farther
do
than
you
that.
mean Sasaki? I was like, did you
Sasaki
just say
is
Sakazuki? I was like,
Sakazuki.
oh no.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
do
sorry.
wonder how that would go.
And then, let's see, what else do we have here? Snickersnack had another thing here. The animal beast reminded me of Luffy's time skip training with Rayleigh. Yep. Imagine Frankie's reaction when he sees the Atom Tree. That's right. Yeah, it didn't even mention that, but there's going to be a whole kind of moment, especially because, he's going to finally reunite with the Thousand Sunny, and that'll be a whole thing. Wonder if Shanks' ship is also made from that tree since he came from Roger's crew. Yeah, probably. Why do I feel like Luffy will be gullible and set Loki free eventually? Yeah, we still don't know how that's going to turn out. But yeah, I like this. I mean, I feel like Shanks' ship is probably made from, it looks like a Viking ship, right? So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oro Jackson was in fact made of that material by Tom. The only thing that would possibly make the Red Force not possibly that wood is who would make it, because a huge part of why Frankie wanted it to be that wood, why he spent that money on that, why it was a part of his dream, was to make it the ship that would do what the Pirate King ship did, that his mentor did. So making the Red Force that too kind of robs Frankie of that a little bit, potentially.
Well, it's possible Tom, because I think Tom might have still been alive when Shanks might have tried to get the... because I mean, that's within 20 years, so I think that might work.
It's still possible. Like, it's one of those things where like it's nitpicking at best, but it's possible.
Pikeman wrote, Loki's reaction to Gear 5th will be priceless. Yes, that is true. We only got the Gear 4, but I mean, assuming, because we know that it is a giant thing, that they recognize the Nika sort of thing. And so Loki might have a bit of a crisis, like a midlife crisis or something when he sees that happen, and then loses what?
He already does not like Luffy. So
right. Yeah, they are two sides of the same coin so far, and you can really see like the stark differences, but also the uncanny similarities. They're like oil and water, though. Lionblade writes, I wonder if Hajrudin made a request to the original giant pirates to track down the Straw Hats during the Egghead arc, considering that he seemed to be expecting them to come to Elbaf. Also, the dialogue between Luffy and Loki was, in my opinion, very interesting, especially when Loki was pushing Luffy's buttons by insulting Shanks. Yeah, that's a decent theory. I don't know how Hajrudin would have known that the Straw Hats were coming. I assumed it was like a newspaper thing.
We know about that. They talked about it.
They did. What did they say again?
It was Dory and Brokey on their ship. They were saying that they had seniority. Hajrudin. That's when they were explaining that he's the son of the king and Loki's his brother.
But did they say that Hajrudin told them that the Straw Hats were Egghead?
Well, I mean, they found out that they were Egghead because of the newspaper. Like,
okay, that's what I'm saying.
They left to go. Everybody knew that they were leaving to do that, though. That was the plan.
Right. Okay, so that's what I was thinking. It wasn't that Hajrudin asked them to do it. I don't think he had to, but yeah.
Yeah, it was catching word that they were at Egghead. that did it.
Cypher J writes, can't understand how nobody commenting on Luffy's Gear 4 punch missed Loki when he has his eyes covered, yet still able to dodge the punch. Some serious hockey there. Yeah, again, I think that he has been training his hockey this whole time. He's probably been using his Conqueror's hockey like to literally like flex against the beasts. Has probably been, with observation hockey. Like, I don't think he's been doing nothing while chained up there for 6 years. He's probably like made himself pretty strong. I mean, think of how strong Luffy got, training in the cuffs in Udon prison during Wano.
Yeah. I mean, we got to scale it up, right? If we're going to do a whole more kingdom arc, it's got to be worth it.
Let's see here. What else do we got? Illuminati No Gaming writes, if Saul dies before meeting Robin, I will also die. Muchi Motu writes, it just clicked in my head, was confused who the little girl was near the end, but it's jewelry in default form. Was so used to her being grown up, I forgot that we did get the reveal this year about the true form. Well, I wouldn't call it a reveal. I think that there were heavy hints that, she was actually a kid the whole time, going all the way back to like Sabaody, honestly. But yes, I guess confirmation, like her actual age, is definitely this past arc.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's kind of like weird to see her just in that comfort zone, but like we talked about, it's cute.
Yeah. J86 says, there's no way that Oda's going to kill off Saul right before he meets Robin again. That would be a drastic move by Oda. Yeah, I think it's going to be, if not, maybe he's going to be on his deathbed and he reunites with Robin at best, but I don't think he'll just die. I don't think Oda hates us that much.
The man loves to draw crying faces, though.
Yes. Stephen M. Parker writes, about Speed, we already know she chose to stay with Otama at the end of Wano when Otama explained the time limit of her power. So I think that there was some conversation here about like if the Kimidango has worn off. I think at this point, probably, because we knew there was a couple of weeks after Wano and then Egghead. It's probably been a month. You're right. So at this point, Speed, Godspeed. She is Otama's mother, and there's no devil fruit, control over her. She's doing this of her own free will. I think it's the case.
Yeah, it's so funny because that one's like Oda like trying to react to reactions of like, oh, it's kind of ethically dubious to do this to people, isn't it? Like it's it's one thing with animals, but like these are people that you're just kind of mind controlling here. So kind of had to throw the extra rule in there about it wearing off. Speed is a resident of Wano, though, notably, so she's back wearing the traditional clothing. So it's kind of a nice redemption arc for her.
Blue Currybow writes, it's a small detail, but I wonder about Goldberg, the giant carrying the Sunny. His shield is one of Big Mom's homies. I know it isn't fake because it was smiling with its tongue out on the cover story he first appeared in, but it's sleeping on page 13. How did he get a homie from the giant's biggest OP, and can Big Mom spy through it? I guess this is probably similar to the Zeus thing, Travis, because I actually forgot that his shield was a homie. Again, it's been so long since Whole Cake, but I don't know. I don't think we have confirmation of like what happens to the homies when something happens to Big Mom. We don't even know if they will still function after she dies. Like, we don't know if they're still homies from like when Mother Carmel, had the devil fruit. But I don't know. I didn't make too much of this myself.
It's one of those debatable things. Is Big Mom dead? Question mark.
TBD. Oda isn't sure yet.
Does it stop working? Well, Boa Hancock's doesn't stop working if the user dies, so other ones would theoretically still apply.
I guess the argument, though, is that they're pieces of her soul. So it's like if her original soul, like with vampires, right? Like that mythology of like the original vampire dies, they all die. Yeah.
Sure. Do you think that because they're pieces of their soul that they don't like that she runs them all? Or is it a clear pick off? Like, I don't think those rules have been defined.
Hey, the Kimidango thing got brought up here too, where it's like, maybe this stuff wears off and that they have the capacity for free will after a certain point, like with Zeus. It just kind of depends. But I guess with Zeus, it was more shenanigans that got him into that position.
No, I mean, the others do have personalities because like you have, why Zeus switched sides in the first place, right?
He's being bullied.
He's being bullied. So it's one of those things where like they seem to be like at least have personalities. I don't want to say sentient, but at least have personalities. So
Zeus is kind of like that childlike, innocent version of Linlin, really.
Someone just needs to get a question in the SBS where it's like, are they dead or are they not dead? Because we're going to keep having this conversation.
He probably gets like 20,000 and is just like, nope, not doing that for the SBS. Vasardo wrote, decent chapter overall. I wasn't thinking Loki would be wacky in any way, but we got that. He doesn't seem like a threat at all, but we don't know what his powers are. I bet Shanks put him in those chains. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even call him very wacky. Like, he's got a little bit of like, he's kind of, he has a little bit of like a villainous sort of like, straw hat, you fiend. Like a little, I wouldn't call it wacky. I would just call him typical like One Piece gaggery, if that makes sense. And I agree, yeah, he doesn't seem like a threat right now, but he is chained up. We haven't seen him like at full blast or anything, so we can't say that yet.
He's very much the straight man in the two-man stand-up show that is this meeting, right? He's trying to have a serious conversation and like wow him with his presence and awesomeness, and Luffy's like picking his nose, right?
He's got Vegeta energy. I feel we did bring up Goku earlier.
It's basically a Manzai routine is what's happening right now, which is great.
Tenzai writes, no, I'm in the minority, but I preferred Robin's time skip appearance over this look. Just wish she had kept her previous tan. Yeah, no, I'm going to have to push back against that. Robin with bangs every time. But that, different strokes.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said different strokes, should I?
Should not have done. Like, I've liked a lot of Robin designs. I think I think Oda has done a great job. She looks good in everything. She does. She just does. I think with the bangs thing, it's supposed to be a confidence, like it's supposed to communicate confidence that Robin's no longer like hiding who she is, that I want to live. She's embraced that a little bit more. I think that's what he was going for with that. But again, this is nice, especially at this point. Why not throw a bone to the people who want the old haircut back?
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, and it has a function too. It's not just out of nowhere. Last comment here is from Black Knight Halberd 42. Really dig the dramatic irony of Luffy having attained the sun god's power and destiny completely unknowingly versus Loki, self-proclaiming himself to same status with the real potential for neither to ever realize the truth about the other because of Loki's blindness, and Luffy just being Luffy. Very excited to see if Loki will be a dark reflection of Luffy in more ways, since he seems to share Luffy's talent for things befriending giant monstrous animals. Luffy instantly swinging on Loki for dissing Shanks was great, but could prove very dangerous if Loki figures out to push Luffy's buttons and stop from being able to go gear 5th. Mugiwara no Goofy's gonna be thrilled Robin has her old hairdo back, though I bet he's gonna be angry the cowboy hat is still missing in action. One of the very few OP YouTubers I can still stand, LOL. Swear to Nika, if Oda rug pulls us on the Robin Sol reunion, there's gonna be problems. Yeah, there's going to be a civil war if there ever was one. But yeah, I love it. That's what I was saying too. Like Loki is kind of the dark reflection of Luffy. I keep forgetting that Loki has the blindfold. I'm assuming the observation hockey is just so intense that he can kind of just see like Daredevil, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's kind of like with Toph from Avatar. Sometimes you just like even the show kind of forgot that she was blind sometimes.
I mean, if you draw too much attention to it, it kind of feels weird too. So it's splitting the difference here. An earlier comment pointed out that it kind of shows, not tells, about his observation hockey by being able to dodge that Snake Man punch.
Right.
Notably, Snake Man punch. So that sucker was fast. So,
was it Snake Man? I thought it was
the
Bounce Man.
He was in Bounce Man, but he was doing like the it was a fast punch.
Check.
It's a fast punch.
I'll take your word for it, Travis. You've never lied to me before. That's for sure.
It looks like a Bounce Man form, but he's like doing the like part. So it's
actually, you know what?
I feel like it's a fast punch. This isn't like a wind up.
I see it. I could see it. Maybe. Okay, yeah, because in one panel it does look like Bound Man, but then at the end he's kind of like dissipating almost in a snake. Yeah.
What are the rules of Gear 4th now?
Yeah, he just vacillates between the two.
I mean, he can just do it in his pinky now, apparently, so whatever. But in any case, it kind of shows, not tells, about like what kind of perception Loki has, right? That he could dodge that. That's as good as you're going to get. I think we're probably close to him getting out of these chains. We're not going to drag this out for very long.
Well, neither are you and I, Travis, going to drag this podcast out any longer. Looks like we about covered it. Although, was there anything else that we didn't get to? I think we just about covered it all, if I want to say.
That's where my notes are.
Nice. Well, we will, I guess, keep you posted. Not sure yet if we are going to get 1132 this week, next week, or the week after. But until then, remember, you can hang out with us on the Discord and chat with us about spoilers and more without having to deal with, you guessed it, Redditors. But thanks as always for listening, and we'll see y'all on the next one. Yo ho ho.